Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the session and for patiently waiting for the past 5 minutes as we ironed out some last minute issues. Um, as you know, this is a workshop where we will discuss funding and scholarship opportunities. Firstly, it falls upon me, I suppose, to congratulate those of you who have already received admission offers from your dream universities. We all are very, very proud of you, both at OPP and Project EduAccess. And we hope that this workshop on funding and scholarships gives you some insights into especially funding opportunities that are still open for you to consider making applications to. So this is the general outline for today's session. I'll quickly say a couple of words about the workshop and also introduce you to your wonderful panelists who you may already see on your screens at the moment. And then I will hand it over to your panelists to speak to you about how to look for funding, what internal funding and external funding opportunities may look like. And they will also give you a sense of scholarships that you can still make applications to before moving on to giving you some general tips for making scholarship applications. And then we'll open the floor to the Q&A session. So once we transition to the Q&A part of the discussion, of course, you can either pop your questions in the chat or you can raise your hand. And once you're called upon, you can always unmute yourself and ask your question. You may notice that this session is being recorded. As you know, this session is being recorded only for internal purposes. So once this meeting is over, we'll share this recording only with you, that is the mentees who are part of the Pakistan Graduate Mentorship Programme for this year. About the workshop, well, this is very much a part of the 10-part workshop series that we have been organizing. You may recall that we already organized 8 workshops back in the day in 2023, and this is the 9th workshop on funding and scholarship opportunities, which, as is obvious from the name, will provide guidance on funding and scholarship applications for graduate studies abroad. That brings us to the 2 wonderful panelists for today. So we are joined by Talha and Hassan. And Talha, and you may have actually seen the 2 of them already in some of our previous workshops. Talha is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Oxford, and Hassan is currently pursuing his PhD in English literature at the Abo Academy University in Turku. So I think now is the time for me to hand over to Hassan first. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, hello everyone. Again, congratulations on getting admissions in the universities that you applied to. I know it's a very tough process, so you're halfway there. So that's good news. So how do you look for funding? And specifically, I will try to cover how does one look funding um, for graduate programs in continental Europe, and then maybe Talha can talk more about UK specifically. Um, in a lot of uh, countries in Europe, and everyone and places like that. Um, a lot of the times the PhD admission is separate from the funding, and specifically that is the case in Nordic countries, that is the case in maybe Netherlands. So what happens is that a lot of the times you will have a PhD offer, लेकिन आपको उसके साथ funding नहीं मिलती, तो applying for funding is a separate thing. And I think that is also communicated by your advisors, first you get the admission and then the funding application will take place. And so how do you go about looking for that? There is unfortunately not like a centralized system, specifically in continental Europe, जिसके अंदर आप देख सकेंगे अच्छा ये वाली फंडिंग्स अवेलेबल हैं और हम यहाँ पर अप्लाई कर सकते हैं. So you have to specifically check the websites of the departments in which you have applied to, in which you have gotten admission. Okay, when is it that they offer funding? So if I, for instance, talk about my department, the fundings are announced 2 times in a year, and then there are specific deadlines in which you have to put in the application, and then there is a committee that decides that, will your project be funded or not. In a lot of countries, it is very competitive, and so again, that is a choice that you have to make. That can you think about coming without being funded to a university, क्योंकि obviously उस तरीके से तालीम तो free है, PhD education, there is no tuition, but you have to sort of take care of your expenses, etc. So in that sense, department funding is very important. Now, अब बहुत सारे लोग होंगे जो humanities से हैं, बहुत सारे लोग होंगे जो कि STEM discipline से हैं या sciences से हैं. The funding works rather differently for those two things. In humanities or in social sciences, typically in Europe, the funding is given by either a grant or sorry, a foundation, which gives it in the form of a grant, and then that grant is administered, which means that there is relatively more freedom for you to pursue your project. STEM disciplines के अंदर आमतौर पर ये होता है कि you are part of a project which has already been funded because your professor got the grant. And so what you have to do is you have to make contribution towards that project. And in that process, you will be getting your PhD or getting your master's or whatever. And so therefore the process works very differently, right? So when you are looking for department funding, if you are in humanities, the work of your professor is something that is closely related to what you will be doing. If you are in humanities, for instance, or if you're in STEM discipline, for instance, the work of the project, which means आपकी जो lab काम कर रही है जिस भी प्रोजेक्ट के ऊपर वो बहुत सेंट्रल होगा, और आपने अपनी जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है इन द फंडिंग एप्लीकेशन, you have to justify that sort of contribution that you will be able to make as a graduate student towards that particular project. And so do keep that distinction in mind कि अगर आप humanities में हैं तो it is more between you and your supervisor about research and whatever goes on in the funding application. If you are in STEM, it is again, the supervisor is very important, but it is more like the work that the lab is doing, because ultimately the lab gets funding based upon its projects and everything, and this is how it goes. So this is how department funding works. Sometimes departments are funded by donor organizations, which means that the grant has come from an organization जिसके अपने मकासद होते हैं. So what I would want you to do is to find out, in case of department funding, that which foundation is funding them, and then sort of read about the foundation as well, right? Like, what does it promote? What does it want to do? What is its foundational principles? और फिर उस प्रिंसिपल के मुताबिक आप अपनी ग्रांट एप्लीकेशन को शेप कर सकते हैं, राइट? फॉर इंस्टेंस इफ it's not relevant here, but like for instance, if you apply for the Fulbright grant, now Fulbright has a very specific purpose, right? It promotes cultural exchange, it promotes an education which leads towards more connections with the world. It wants people to go back to their countries and make a contribution towards their societies. And so if you write a grant application, for instance, towards Fulbright, you will know that these are the things that they want want you to pursue or want to fund, right? So when looking for department funding, one, you have to again be very vigilant about when the scholarships are announced, to focus on what they are funding, or who is funding them, and then three, make your application in that way. And again, keep your supervisor in the loop. And again, this is specifically for European, continental European PhDs, and make sure that you send them the application in advance, right? And so Again, this covers department funding. This also covers college funding and university fundings as well, because this is how sort of the grant model works in Europe. कि आप funding पे apply करते हैं, then it goes forward. When it comes to external sources of funding, this again is typically for master's scholarship. And so you have Rhodes Scholarship, you have Al Khan Foundation Scholarship, you have Felix Scholarship, um, similarly Shivning and that scholarship. Again, these have very specific deadlines. And so what would help or what helped me was कि you can sort of make a spreadsheet in which you put in every scholarship, the deadlines of that scholarship, and also what you have done in order to pursue that that scholarship, right? So for instance, आप उस spreadsheet के अंदर लिख सकते हैं कि मैंने um, if I'm applying for Shivning, I've asked for recommendation letters. This is where I am on my uh, personal statement. This is where I am on certifications that I'm needed. So again, you have to be very systematic if you're applying for any of these country-wise scholarships, because they have specific deadlines, they have specific interviews which take place at a particular time. Similarly, again, the visa process and everything, like that's something that you can think about later. And so that is one way of thinking about external funding. And of course, we can talk more about it in the questions. Finally, if you're unable to get any other scholarships and you want to come on a studentship, that again is a model which is typically in US, in which you are a graduate research assistant, or you help the department in certain way. Um, a lot of the times, studentships are offered as part of the scholarship, तो आपको दोबारा अप्लाई करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती, and that's how it goes. A lot of the times you go there, you spend some time, sort of have your step in the system, and then you get that studentship because you know a certain professor and everything else. So one thing that I would really recommend here is to like network a lot. A lot of the fundings, a lot of these things depend upon who you know, and who can put in a good word for you, who knows what. And so networking, as in other areas of life, is also very important in academic sort of settings. And it has a huge impact. I think once you will start your studies, you will sort of get to know, okay, how it works. A lot of the students here in Finland fund their education through part-time jobs. And so this is something so you can sort of look in. यूरोप के अंदर कॉन्टिनेंटल यूरोप के अंदर फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर आप पीएचडी के लिए आते हैं तो यू कम ऑन अ वर्क परमिट व्हिच मींस दैट वो आवर्स वाली रिस्ट्रिक्शंस नहीं है कि आपने हफ्ते में 30 घंटे काम करना है, लाइक दैट्स इट. And so I see a lot of people who are not here on funded PhDs or masters. So they do, odd jobs जिसे आप कहते हैं वो करते हैं, delivery jobs होती हैं, stuff like that. So maybe that's something that you can look into if you will be able to do it or not. And then sort of make preparations. For instance, if you're a good driver, you want to do delivery jobs, so get your license in order, get an international license, and go forward in that particular way. Crowdfunding is another way which recently has gotten more appeal. If you want to know more about it, I would recommend कि आप GoFundMe वाली जो website है उसके ऊपर जाएं and see how people pitch in their educational ambitions and how they gather funds in that particular case. So in that case, if you go towards that, you need to have a very powerful story that can resonate with a lot of people. Crowdfunding, आमतौर मतलब if for those of you who don't know, means कि आप लोगों के सामने एक पिच रखते हैं कि मैं ये तालीम हासिल करना चाहता हूँ, ये मेरी कहानी है, और उनसे दरख्वास्त करते हैं कि they can fund in or they can pitch in for your education as much as they can. And so again, you have to sort of look at the successful stories, how people tell those stories about what makes them go forward. Next slide, please. Yes, so I think yeah, so I think some of this is one of the ways in which you can look for fees and funding and scholarships. Again, this particular platform will be shared with everyone as well. One of the platforms that I prefer is Academic Positions. तो आप वहाँ जाकर भी you can sort of, it is a database specifically जो यूरोप के अंदर positions आती रहती हैं, calls for fundings आती रहती हैं, तो you can look forward in that way. And so like this presentation has a list of a lot of resources that you can sort of look for. There are databases that you need to be familiar with, and furthermore, you need to like check every now and then are there positions or not. And again, this is specifically for PhD scholarships or PhD fundings जो के बाद में आती रहती हैं. Yes, Fizan, so that is academic positions, if you can like see it. Next slide, please. Yes. So I think we discussed in details, but then again, internal funding, PhD के case में typically it's available specifically in STEM departments. Humanities के जो लोग हैं, in recent times there has been a crunch when it comes to the fundings of humanities. Europe के अंदर a lot of the right-wing governments come and then they slash funds for arts and humanities and everything else. So that is something which is why you might see less funding for humanities as compared to, let's say, STEM discipline or science-oriented disciplines. And again, that is sort of a dynamic of your field that you will sort of have to contend with. And that is again something that your supervisor is also thinking about in terms of funding, in terms of doing all of those things else. And so I would say, read about that as well, about, for instance, मतलब इसके ऊपर बहुत बात होती है कि what is the crisis of humanities, what is humanities in AI and everything else. So maybe also inform yourself of those debates, and then sort of incorporate what comes up as a result of those debates in your sort of understanding. And yeah, so again, be familiar with who funds your department, what are the organizations, when do they offer grants. Again, very important to make a spreadsheet of deadlines कि इस वक्त इस grant की deadline है. And also typically लोगों ने format share किया होता है कि ये वाला format है, इसके मुताबिक apply करना है. But if you're not sure, do ask with your supervisor, or another way of asking for like a template or something is to connect with people who are from the department. LinkedIn pay. Typically, people are very helpful, so they will tell you their experience about applying, and they will tell you कि आप इस format पे apply कर सकते हैं. Again, जो funding applications होती हैं, they follow a very specific format, and a lot of the times those formats are different for each application. And so be very, very mindful कि उन्होंने क्या क्या मांगा हुआ है, और like follow those instructions to a T. क्योंकि a lot of the times your application might be rejected because you did not follow a certain technicality. And so that is like a very important part of those things. Like sometimes specifically, I think in US cases, you are already considered for scholarships. But other times, you have to sort of apply separately, which is the case with a lot of continental or mainland European universities. And so, yeah, I'll be happy to chat more about internal fundings in the question and answer session.
Thank you so much, Hassan. I think you covered a lot of things in a lot of detail. Just one small thing that I want to add, which I think you've covered, but I just want to reiterate, is the department website is the key place to look at. So there'll be a lot of funding, especially for STEM. There'll be a lot of funding opportunities that are present on the department website. And there'll be a lot of projects that would be funded on the department website as well. So any university, any place you're applying, the department might already have funding. So go on the department website, try to find out which projects are already funded and apply for those projects. That would really increase your chances for funding. And the other thing I just want to briefly touch on is the key thing about a PhD program, less so for MS for a master's program, is funding. So grades do matter, and obviously intellectual caliber does matter, but the funding is very important. So if you've secured the funding, it makes it a lot more easier. So there's a lot of bodies as well. There are a lot of banks, there's a lot of donor organizations that you can reach out to to also look into that. So and I'll be happy to take questions in the question and answer session and talk a bit more about it. I'll now talk about the Oxford Pakistan program. This is a program that we started around 3.5 years ago, and this is based at Oxford, and we provide full scholarships and partial scholarships to students who've gotten admissions at the University of Oxford. We usually have 1 year grants. So if anyone's applied for MPhil, MSc, or DPhil, we support a 1 year grant, and then next year your application's looked into again. The reason is we only have spend down funding for 5 years to 5 to 10 years, so it's sort of done on a rolling basis. The Oxford Scholars Program was able to sorry, Oxford Pakistan program was able to give 11 scholarships last year. So one of our scholarships is typically for women from underprivileged backgrounds. Another scholarship is for students from South Punjab, but most of our scholarships are open. For students from STEM subjects and from humanities and social sciences subjects. So that's roughly to give you an idea about what it is. We don't really OPP doesn't normally cover the cost for air travel from Pakistan, but the scholarship is sufficient enough for you guys to buy a ticket. But if, for example, there are exceptional circumstances, then we can definitely look into that. Mainly, it's for need-based students, so who have the financial need to apply. So it's not not a merit-based scholarship, but a need-based scholarship. So our three full scholarships are need-based, whereas our partial scholarships are need and merit-based. So yeah. And these scholarships only take into place after you've received an admissions offer from Oxford. So hopefully all the admissions offers have arrived last week or the week before. And the OPP scholarship would now be launched on the 6th of April, hopefully. And then you can submit your application, and then the process is very straightforward. I'll go through that in a bit more detail in the following slides. So these are the it's 9 or 10 main scholarships. We keep on adding to these scholarships as well. So there's a couple of scholarships that we've added on this year, and there's a couple of small scholarships that have stopped. So Malala Scholarship is a fully funded scholarship for a Pakistani girl from an underprivileged background who's honorary resident in Pakistan. Neelofer Mehdi, again, is a partial scholarship for talented Pakistanis and British Pakistani students. So a lot of our scholarships are aimed at Pakistanis and British Pakistani students. There's very few scholarships that are just for Pakistani students. So if you're a British Pakistani, you could also apply for these scholarships. There's a Sarwar Paja scholarship, again, that's around £20,000. Hori scholarship. Then there's a full Tareen scholarship for the students from specifically from South Punjab. So if we don't find a student from South Punjab, we give it to someone from Pakistan. So it doesn't mean that if you're not from South Punjab, you're not eligible to this scholarship, but preference is always given to students from South Punjab. And then there are other partial scholarships, including Arib, scholarships established by Arib Azam, Nawaz Khokhar. There's a Jamal scholarship and there's a Tariq Zaman scholarship. So in total, last year we were able to give around £450,000 in funding. Part of that funding was collaborating with University of Oxford and unlocking funding from the university, and the rest of it was given to us by our generous donors. So we're trying to stabilize it. We're trying to get as many funds as possible, because our dream is that one day, hopefully, if you have an admission from Oxford and you're from Pakistan or British Pakistanis, you don't have to worry about the funding. We're not there yet, but hopefully, inshallah, we might be there in a couple of years. Okay, so coming to the application process and eligibility. Applicants must be Pakistani nationals or British Pakistanis. They must have an admission offer from Oxford. So if you don't have an admission offer from Oxford, there's no point in applying, because our scholarships look at applications beyond the admissions process. So if you have an admission process, then if you have an admission offer, then it's definitely worth applying. Most of our scholarships are based at Lady Margaret Hall. That doesn't mean if you have an offer from another college, you're not eligible. All that will happen is when you get an offer from OPP, you will be asked to migrate from whichever college you have been given an offer to LMH. The Tareen scholarship is based at Kellogg College. So again, if you're a Tareen OPP scholar, then you would be shifted to Kellogg. Okay, so moving on to the requirement, as I said, OPP scholarship considers both academic merit and financial need, but both of them, not just academic merit. So we're trying to support students who have the financial need, or who are coming from underprivileged backgrounds, who do not have an opportunity to who haven't had the opportunity to study abroad. So this means that again, preference would be given to students who haven't done an undergrad from the UK or US or Europe or from anywhere other than Pakistan, but not necessarily. So that's not the only criteria. So if you've had a scholarship doing it during your undergrad from a place abroad, you're still eligible. But this is a preference criteria, so we'll obviously give preference, a higher preference to a student who's just been in Pakistan. But a lot of our scholars have already done their undergraduate degree. Some of our scholars have had undergraduate degrees from abroad. Again, as I mentioned before, some of our scholarships are specific to preference are given to specific regions or female applicants. But it's mainly the main key criteria is looking for students for whom this is a life-changing opportunity. So Faizan, I'll just answer your question as well. There's 3 fully funded scholarships, and I haven't read the full question. For the whole duration. So Faizan, not at the moment. We do 1-year scholarships at the moment, but that doesn't mean we don't support students who have completed their first year. So for example, what we're really looking for is facilitating students for the first year. and then asking them to look for opportunities and helping them to look for opportunities in their second and third year. If for some reason they don't, we don't leave them hanging. We do support them. We do provide them partial support, but yeah, we unfortunately don't have a 3-year-long, 4-year-long scholarship. So we do support DPhil students. Last year, the Tareen Scholar was a DPhil student, and there were other partial grants that we provided to 3 or 4 DPhil students. Again, as Hassan mentioned before, for any scholarship, or any organization, there's a purpose. Purpose to that organization, or there's some ethos to that organization. So for OPP, we really want to see students who for whom it's a life-changing opportunity and who want to impact Pakistan's development through their research and public engagement. That doesn't mean if you're doing a STEM subject and you're working on, let's say, items and materials, or you're working on, let's say, thin film solar cells, or whatever your research is, that doesn't mean it needs to be directly linked to something in Pakistan, but we need to see the passion, the drive, your sort of commitment in a way to really work for Pakistan. And the whole idea about the program is opening doors for others. So what we want to see is, if we open the door for you, or if the scholarship committee opens the doors for you, we want to see individuals who can open doors for others. So that's the key ethos behind OPP scholarship. Selection process, applications will open shortly. So applications are hopefully opening on the 6th of April, and they will close around 22nd of April 2024. All shortlisted candidates would be invited for an online interview, and then decisions would be made in May. Usually, some of the applicants, we have a series of interviews. So we have the first interview, and then we would have the second interview for candidates that have been shortlisted, and so on and so forth, because it's quite a lot of responsibility. It's someone else's money that we have to hand over, so we need to make sure all the criteria have been looked at. Yeah, so that's roughly the scholarship process. And interested candidates can apply by filling out and submitting an online application form on this web page. This web page would not have the form right now. Follow us on Twitter / on our look up on our website, or our other social media handles, and hopefully by the 6th of April you would be able to see a link to the application form. Next slide, guys. Okay. Again, internal masters scholarship. So that was more focused on OPP, but to give you an idea about other scholarships. So continental Europe's very good in this way, because as Hassan suggested, you get a lot of scholarships, and all you need to do is make up for the living expenditure by doing either odd jobs. There is an option there. If worst come worst, you don't get funding in continental Europe, you can work odd jobs and you can make your way through the degree. But in a lot of ways, UK is very different, because one, the scholarships are very, very limited, and the second thing is, if you don't have a scholarship, the fees are not free. So the fees are quite the fees are quite hefty. So you have to have some level of scholarship, and a lot of universities offer scholarships. So for example, these are some of the scholarships that we've mentioned at University College London, their Department of Education. Then there's a University of Sussex, where you have these scholarships. You have scholarships at LSE, at Nottingham. These are just some examples that we have given you. If you go on any university's website, and you go on their fees and funding page, you would be able to search through the scholarships that are available, and you can literally see which of those scholarships are relevant to you. Uh, it's I know, again, as Hassan said, there's no centralized database where you can really find all these scholarships. You would have to look at each one of those websites. So again, as Hassan suggested, make a list of all the universities that you want to apply for, make a list of all the courses that you want to apply for. Don't apply to 30 universities, 40 universities. Maybe focus on 5 or 10, go through them properly. If you're unsuccessful, then next year you can widen the net. But really, whenever you're looking at any particular application, so it's key to really put in the effort, and putting in the effort for more than 20 to 30 universities is a very difficult endeavor. So really understand what they're looking for, really understand what are the key things that the organization. So for example, there might be a funding opportunity at UCL, but it would be funded by a funding body. So really understand what that funding body wants, so that when you apply, you're really catering to that audience. So it's a very detailed process. So don't just keep on firing away at applications. Really think about where you're applying, what courses you're applying for, how you're relevant to that courses, how you're relevant to that course, which universities are you really looking into, and then just focus on that. Just really understand that website inside out, really see what funding opportunities there are for you guys, whether those opportunities are partial, whether those opportunities are full. Just keep really, like, even dream about those websites. Just over sort of you have to बेखतर कूद पड़ा आतिश नमरूद में इश्क. So you have to really dive into this process. You have to mentally and physically be in it. You have to consume yourself by the idea that this is what you're working on, and don't go on a 100 university application spree. Just focus on 5 or 10, 20, and then really work on those. So then 3. Okay, this is again, as I mentioned before, for all of you, especially for PhD programs. I'll cover the UK bit, and then I'll hand it over to Hassan. बहुत ज़्यादा अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ हैं. ऐसे नहीं है कि अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ नहीं है यूके के अंदर PhD स्कॉलरशिप्स की. स्टेम के अंदर बहुत ज़्यादा है, और बाकी सब्जेक्ट्स में कंपैरेटिवली कम है. But there are a lot of opportunities, and if you just go on University of Oxford website and you just go on, my subject is material science, so I can really talk about that. Even in material science, you will find 20 or 30 projects on the material science website which might be funded. Apply to those. So you really, there's a lot of opportunities on the websites that you can look into. Now there's a lot of research council awards. So there's a lot of there's EPSRC, there's ERC, there's a lot of funding councils that are funded by the UK government. So UK research councils, and they offer funding to international students as well. These are through doctoral training programs, DTPs. Again, search on for doctoral training programs on the university website, or you could look them up and see where they have allocated the funding this year. So UK is very interesting because they have a very detailed R&D policy. So for example, they know if they're spending £1 billion, 30% of that needs to go to university, 40% of that needs to go to industry, 50%, the rest of it needs to go into other research councils, other catapult centers. So they have a very detailed strategy that फंडामेंटल रिसर्च के लिए इतने पैसे लगाने हैं, मिड टियर रिसर्च के लिए इतने पैसे लगाने हैं, एंड टियर रिसर्च के लिए इतने पैसे लगाने हैं, एंड whatever their fundamental research is, TRL, technology readiness level 1, they'll all come to university or research bodies. So keep looking into that. Again, there are, I can talk more about STEM. There are centers like National Physical Laboratory, National Composite Center, Institute of Machining, Institute of AMRC, Advanced Manufacturing Center. All these centers also have PhD programs. They're called EngDs, so engineering doctorates. So look into these centers as well. And I'm sure they might, like Wellcome Trust, and there must be a Alan Turing Center for AI. I'm sure there must be centers for humanities and social science and for law and other subjects. Look at these centers, and these centers might be providing scholarships as well. So don't just focus on the university website. Go broad. Once you've figured out which university you're applying, which course you want to do, then look at these centers in the UK, and you'll be able to find something and write to people. Draft your email very well. You now have Chat GPT, so you can use that and draft a very good email, because that is what's going to open the door. Make sure your email is short when you're reaching out to professors. Attach, and if you want to attach something, that's really good, but don't just write a 2-page long email, because no one's gonna really go into that email. So short, concise, very goal oriented. This is what I want to talk to you about. Here's my proposal. Can we jump on a call, and so on and so forth. Again, as we discussed, Wellcome Trust is also another body that you can reach out to. And then DTPs in the UK, you can check out this UKRI, UK Research and Innovation Council. You can check out their website, and you can see what doctoral training partnerships they have, and look at that. And one last thing for these scholarships before I hand it over to Hassan is a lot of companies also fund scholarship. So, for example, if you're into pharmaceutical, or if you're into journalism, look at the top 10, 15 organizations that are really big, and look at their spending budgets, or their social spending budgets, and see if there's any scholarship applications in that. And you could even reach out to them once you have a good offer. And again, offer is one thing. That doesn't mean that. So let's say if you get an offer this year, it can be deferred if you don't get a scholarship, and you can really next year focus on scholarships, because now you have a graduate offer. So that doesn't mean you don't look at graduate offers again, but it's not the end of the world. This life is a marathon, not a sprint. So keep the morale up. Make sure you're mentally strong, and inshallah, hopefully, if you keep working at it, keep chipping away, I'm sure you will get the goal, or you reach the goal that you've aimed for. So I'll hand it over to Hassan now to talk about the European Research Council, and then obviously we both of us are here, and we can answer you. There's a few other slides we'll go through, but we're here to answer your questions. Over to you, Hassan.
Thank you, Talha. And again, to reiterate what Talha was saying, it is very important to sort of understand the ethos, by which we mean what are the end goals of the organization that is funding you. वो दुनिया में किस तरह की तब्दीली देखना चाहते हैं, और आप उस तब्दीली का हिस्सा या उस तब्दीली की तरफ अपना हिस्सा कैसे डाल सकते हैं, right? And ultimately, that is what you have to translate into your grant proposal. You have to translate into PhD application, you have to translate it in research terms, right? Because that is where your ideation comes in, that is where your skills come in. How do you translate it? You identify a goal and you tell that how your skills and your expertise will help you in reaching that particular goal in whatever domain you are thinking about. Um, Again, the European Research Council, as mentioned in the slide, was established by the European Union. And so it would make sense to sort of understand, okay, what are the concerns of European Union right now? Like, what are the political ends, what are the economic ends, what are the scientific advancement ends that European Union wants to be doing. And that is how they set their funding agenda, right? And that is how they offer projects. Whenever you find a project, like Talha mentioned, whoever is the principal investigator of the project or whoever is heading the project, my recommendation would be कि आप उसका अगर सारा काम नहीं पढ़ सकते तो एटलीस्ट जो उसका लेटेस्ट काम है, जो रिसर्च है, जो किताब है, just read it. Because a book, an academic book, and any academic work, while it makes contribution towards that field, it's also aspirational, which means कि वो बताता है कि मैंने आगे क्या करना है या मैं आगे क्या करना चाहती हूँ. And so whenever you find a project through the websites, academic positions, find a PhD, identify कि वो project जो शख्स head कर रहा है या जो lab head कर रही है, what are its scientific or academic productions, right? And please go through all of them, and if not all of them, at least the most recent ones, and try to figure out how do you fit in inside that framework, right? If you, for instance, अगर आप Google Scholar पे search करते हैं तो Google Scholar के ऊपर you find articles, but there is a line that is written which is, you know, standing on the shoulders of the giants. So ultimately, that is what academic or scientific knowledge is, that you stand on the shoulders of people who have come before you so that you can see a little bit more further into the horizon of knowledge. And so I'm stressing this because while it is a technical process, but it is also a creative process as well, which means कि it's not simply कि आप form fill करेंगे और आपको मिल जाएगी. You have to make a creative case based upon your academic background, based upon sometimes your personal background as well, कि you deserve this particular funding. So again, if you're applying for Marie Curie scholarship, read through the foundational principles of, what is it that Marie Curie Foundation wants to do in this world, and then structure or tailor your research proposal according to that. And again, keep whatever your research proposal is, keep it, I would say, fluid, right? It does not have to be set in stone. आप उसे modify कर सकते हैं, आप उसे professor के मुताबिक या जो lab उसकी काम कर रही है उसके मुताबिक you can change it, you can sort of make amendments to it. You can even write something which is entirely for that purpose as well. And again, I would recommend against writing something which you are not interested in, because even if you get the funding, it's very difficult to spend 4 years doing something that you're not interested in or you don't like. PhD is difficult in and of itself. So again, while it is important to structure your research grant or proposal according to the demands of the scholarship, you should not put in something which you're not interested in or which you're not passionate about in carrying it out. And again, these are the websites. सुबह उठ के सबसे पहले इन वेबसाइट्स को चेक करें रोज कि यहाँ पे कोई पोजीशन आ रही है या नहीं आ रही. Because again, like Talha mentioned, it's something which is a very consuming process. And so just keep on checking these websites. If there is a position, once a position comes up, read up on who is offering what funding. EU के अंदर खास तौर पे अगर आप यूरोपियन रिसर्च काउंसिल के अंदर वाली फंडिंग्स करते हैं तो it would be very helpful to read the policy documents, every country almost has their own regional sort of research councils. And so you can read up on that as well. So for instance, अगर आप में से वो लोग जो STEM के अंदर हैं, they can sort of, if you read, you will sort of see that climate change and carbon neutral economy is central to the research projects that are being offered. Similarly, AI is very central to the funding grants which are being offered. And so just again, remind yourself that this is a project or this is something that you will have to read or you have to make yourself familiar with and maybe step out of your comfort zone in order to have an understanding. Humanities I can tell you that digital humanities is something that is gaining a lot of steam. Similarly, I also saw some projects which were about refugees, the narratives of refugees, how do refugees tell their stories once they're in Europe. And so again, you will have to sort of do the literature review and do all of that stuff once you find your way forward. So keep on checking academic positions, find a PhD, your ex website, and once you find a deadline, once you find a position, the better thing to do is to contact the professor. You don't need to have, while you're getting in touch with the professor, आपको पूरे research proposal की ज़रूरत नहीं है. So like Talha mentioned, introduce yourself, introduce what you would like to do, ask if you can, talk to the professor for an interview, for a short Zoom interview. And then if the professor is interested, they will sort of tell you, okay, what you need to send next, right? They might ask you for your master's thesis. They might ask you for sort of a concrete ideation of what you want to do. So like develop your elevator pitch, right? Elevator pitch, हम कहते हैं कि, for instance, if you're going somewhere and you find yourself in an elevator with someone, तो उस elevator ride के अंदर क्या आप अपने बारे में बता सकते हैं कि मैं क्या करना चाहती हूँ और मैं क्या कहते हैं किस तरीके से अपना project आगे लेके जाना चाहती हूँ, etc. And so the email, like Talha mentioned, is short. But the purpose is to tell something about yourself and what you can do with the project that the PI or the supervisor is offering, and then move towards a possible interview, a possible Zoom call, which can be again very short. Again, respect the time of the PI or of the supervisor because they will have a lot coming in. And so if they're responding to you, make sure that you respect their time by doing whatever they ask you to do in terms of reading, in terms of sending material, in terms of communication and everything else. And so yeah, that is pretty much what I wanted to talk about in terms of PhD funding in mainland Europe. Talha, is it your turn?
I'll talk about the first few and then I'll hand it over to. I think these are all, the France one you can talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So these are some of the scholarships in the UK, which some of them are linked to Oxford and Cambridge, but some of them are open. So Chevening scholarships again, they have a lot of scholarships that you can apply for. Again, what they look Chevening and Commonwealth, they look for students who want to go back to their country. Then there's the Felix Scholarship. Again, there's only 3 or 4 universities that's linked to that you can apply for. You have the Rhodes Scholarship, which I think starts in May, June right now. So hopefully, obviously for students who've already gotten admissions, it's too late. But for the cycle next year, you can start applying in June, and I think the age limit for it is 2025. And then there's the Weidenfeld Hoffman Scholarship. Again, this is an Oxford related scholarship. So once you get admitted into Oxford, you can apply for it. I think the deadline for this is gone, but do check it out and see if it's still there. Gates is a scholarship related to Cambridge. It's similar to the Rhodes Scholarship, but I don't think there's an age limit related to it. age limit related to it. And then there is the Vaughan Williams Cambridge Scholarship, which is focused on Cambridge, and a Tugan Scholarship, which is again focused on Oxford. Every scholarship has Oxford and Cambridge. But every scholarship at Oxford and Cambridge it might be linked to a college as well. So when you're looking for scholarships, also look for college specific scholarships. There's one scholarship available at the Oxford Centre for Islamic Studies, which is very competitive. There's only one scholarship, so do apply for that. But yeah, these are some of the external scholarships that are available. And Hassan, do you want to talk about the scholarship in France?
Yeah, absolutely. So the France EFL scholarship is again something which is designed to sort of attract foreign students. And so again, go through the website, like Talha mentioned, bas website ko ghol ke aap pee jaएं, and sort of figure out what kind of foreign talent do they want to attract. A lot of the times, जो country specific scholarship होती हैं, if you are, for instance, on the humanities part of it, they do want to promote their own literature to cultural exchange भी कई दफा होता है. So if, for instance, you're in humanities, or if you're looking for a humanities scholarship, and so you can sort of think more from that perspective as well. For instance, let's say French literature, or फ्रांस के अंदर जो एंग्लोफोन लिटरेचर है वो किस तरह पढ़ रहा है बन रहा है वगैरह वगैरह, और like the global impact of sort of French presence everywhere. And so in that sense, from the humanities perspective, you can think about what are the cultural ethos or cultural excellence or competencies that they want to promote, that they want to take forward. One thing that I would also like to mention is do check like the stipends that these scholarships offer, and is the stipend, or will the stipend be enough for you when you move to that particular country, right? Because a lot of you will have families that would move with them, and so it is very important to sort of maybe plan forward about is the stipend or is the monthly contribution going to be enough for you to support your family, support the particular purpose as well. But again, to reiterate, like wherever you see a countrywide scholarship, do read about the goals, and then your chances for funding will be more if you incorporate those particular goals in your application material, in your personal statement, in whatever it is that you want to achieve forward. So maybe the deadlines might have passed, but it is a good thing to start early and start preparing the materials for all of these scholarships, and of course start doing the reading that is required.
One last thing on the previous point, everyone. Every college I have mentioned it before, but every college might have some fund. So Oxford and Cambridge are very particular because it's divided into colleges, and colleges also have internal funding. So do look at colleges as well. Obviously, you don't need to look at every college, because when you look at their central website, it'll tell you which scholarship are Pakistanis eligible for in which college. But do look at those colleges, and you might find scholarship opportunities there. Back to you, Hassan. Is this
yeah, Talha, these are yours.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Gayatri. Okay, so there are some external scholarships that are still accepting applications. This includes the Khan Foundation International Scholarship Program, AKF, ISP. To be eligible, you must have excellent academic records, have a bachelor degree, and that or equivalent training. But again, it's similar to OPP in a lot of ways, that it's looking for genuine financial need. And you have to be admitted to a reputable postgraduate university. And again, as Hassan said, every scholarship program would have 4 or 5 key points that they're looking for. So like for Khan, it's leadership potential, professional experience, extracurricular activities, volunteering contribution, your impact on society, your financial need. So when you're making an application, make sure to read up on what they're looking for, because everyone would be looking for different things. And then there's a great scholarship again. So for Khan, the application's closed tomorrow, so make sure you rush to it if you have an offer. Great scholarships, again, there are 20 postgrad scholarships available from UK universities across a variety of programs. Each scholarship is a minimum of 10,000 towards your tuition fee for a 1-year postgraduate course. So visit the participating website to apply for the individual scholarship. So again, Great Scholarship is another platform. We've shared the link with you. Try to understand what they're looking for. They do offer 20 postgraduate scholarships, and there's £10,000 is quite a hefty amount of money, and that's the minimum level. So you could apply for more if need be. But again, it's all these scholarships are linked to your admission. So as Hassan suggested, reaching out to your PI, speaking to them, and so on and so forth. It's sort of very, very important to get the admission sorted, and then these scholarships are available. So there's 2 quick questions that come with Oxford College's offer, and how competitive Oxford it comes from. If we haven't specified a college reference, is it okay? So the scholarships. Gayatri, do you want me to take these questions, or shall we come to the questions at the very end, and then we can go through all these questions?
Yeah, I think that would be better to take them all at the end.
Sounds good. And again, this is these are other external scholarships. One of them is the British Council Scholarship for women in STEM subjects. So you can apply to all these universities to make the most of it. Queen Mary, Anglia Ruskin, Coventry, University of Greenwich, and University of Southampton. This covers a full tuition fee, living stipend, travel cost, visa, and health coverage, and refund of any IELTS test. So this is a very good scholarship program, because it covers it covers you fully. There's the Best Way Foundation Scholarship. There's one of them is available at Oxford as well, but there are multiple scholarships at University of Kent and University of Bradford for students from Pakistani domicile studying STEM-related degrees. Applicants will be shortlisted based on their academic performance and financial need, and it covers the full fee, full tuition fee, and contributes towards the maintenance of your living expenditure as well. Again, so you have the links for Bradford and Kent, but when you get admitted to Oxford, you are automatically considered for the Best Way, Surrendered Way scholarship, graduate scholarship. So you don't need to submit a separate application form, but it's automatically considered. Wikinoon is a scholarship program that's been going on for almost 30 years. It's focused at Oxford, so Oxford and Cambridge, and it's again 2 full or partial scholarships are available for applicants who are resident or nationals of Pakistan and who are applying to any full-time and part-time degree for Oxford and Cambridge. The main thing is they're looking for students who've not been abroad before. If you've applied for your graduate study at Oxford by January deadline, and if you have the admissions, you will be contacted. Once you have the admissions process, you will be contacted by Wikinoon to fill a short application form, and then they'll shortlist you. I don't think there's an interview process for it, but you just have to submit a short application form. Similar to Oxford, you have the same scholarship available at Cambridge, at undergraduate and master's level. And again, in the field of natural, applied, and social science, PhD applicants are also considered on occasion. It's open to any college at Cambridge or Oxford. Preference would be given to students who work on or taking courses that are beneficial to the development of Pakistan. This was set up by the Noon Foundation, and it almost supported 220 scholars in the past 30 years. So it's normally only be awarded to applicants who have not previously studied outside Pakistan. So it's very similar to the Oxford Noon Scholarship. No separate application is required for the scholarship. Application will be shortlisted based on the application for admission. So for Oxford, you will get an email asking you to fill out an application form, but for Cambridge, you would just be shortlisted after the admissions process. Hassan, I think
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so this particular scholarship is for development sector. And again, you can think about what are the current narratives that are going on in the development sector about how should one go about giving aid, giving sustenance to developing countries. This scholarship is again for professionals from developing countries. And so again, before applying, read up on that particular sort of narrative that this particular joint World Bank group wants to promote in terms of development sector. I know that climate resilience is one of a very foundational principle in the development sector circles right now. And so maybe read up on World Bank documents which talk about maybe case studies or maybe stories that they want to promote. And once you do that, you will see that it requires professional recommendations. And so make sure that the recommendation that you get aligns with your professional experience, but also sort of the overall theme that you're developing in your particular application. Pakistan it's very, very difficult to get even like a simple generic recommendation letter. So my recommendation would be कि जब भी आप जिससे भी आपने recommendation letter भिजवाना है, आप उसे अपना recommendation letter खुद लिख के दें और अपने किसी दोस्त से कह दें कि वो आपका recommendation letter लिख ले. And in that recommendation letter, highlight the things that you want to be highlighted. And how would you know that these are things that should be highlighted? You would know them based on your experience, but also based upon what the website is looking for in terms of, or what the program is looking for in terms of who are the desirable candidates with that particular thing. And so again, recommendation letters may, especially if you come from like a if your experience has been in the government sector, it becomes very difficult to get like glowing recommendation letters, but these letters are very important in terms of applications, not just PhD applications, but the master's application as well. And so make sure that you spend some time in crafting that professional recommendation letter. Ideally, though, the person you have worked for should be able to, or work with should be able to, write a very personalized recommendation letter. But अगर ऐसा नहीं होता तो just write it yourself or ask a friend to write it and then just get it signed from that person as well. It's not ideal, but it is something जो कि शायद आपको करना पड़े because it carries 30% of the weightage, which is a huge chunk of your sort of personal thing. And again, like it mentions commitment to their home country. So make sure in your statement, in your other documents, make sure that you show your commitment. And commitment is not just shown कि अच्छा मैं वापस आ गई ये करूंगा या वो करूंगा. It is shown based on precedence as well. कि आपने since it's for mid career professionals आपने अभी तक क्या किया है और उसको आप किस तरीके से build कर सकते हैं. So don't make statements that you cannot substantiate and prove through evidence, through past experience in that particular way. Next slide, please. Yes, so Erasmus Mundus program is again an amazing opportunity in which you get education in multiple countries in Europe. The same format goes for that as well. Think about what is the ethos of the program that you're applying for. You need to also prepare documentation. A lot of the programs require IELTS or an English proficiency exam. So make sure you have that. Again, the database is kind of extensive, so you will have to do a lot of research to find a program that works for you. Again, it's a very good idea to connect with the previous recipients of the program and maybe ask their advice or reach out to them on LinkedIn. A lot of them will respond, but even if they don't respond, you will still be able to see the kind of work that they have been doing on their LinkedIn profiles. And so that is also part of the research. The people who have done it before, what are they doing with their degrees? What have they accomplished during their degrees? What has been their experience? Sometimes talking to them, you might realize this is not maybe a program for you. So do your research, not just on the website, but also in terms of the alumni of that program. In terms of the universities of that program and what is it that those universities want to sort of promote. And so one thing that I would want you to be careful about is sometimes I remember reading that some of those programs take place in Israel. So like that our passport is not, let us go to Israel. So in that sense, again, don't spend your time and effort going for a program which might be in a country जहाँ पे आप जा नहीं सकते. But other than that, it's an amazing opportunity and it requires a lot of different things. Again, don't use one personal statement for applying to all the programs. Like that would be horrible. And yeah, that is, we can again talk more about Erasmus Mundus if you want in the question and answer thing. Yeah. So these are some of the websites that you can sort of look about. It's typically the specific country specific websites talk about the master's program, so they are useful for that. The website academic positions, like I mentioned, is very useful for PhD scholarships or research scholarships or postdoctoral scholarships if you're interested in that. Give yourself, I would say, some time and patience if you want to explore, let's say, Germany's website, because again, कुछ चीजें translation में lost हो जाती हैं. कई दफा आपको समझ नहीं आ रही होती आपने कहाँ जाना है, and we are used to a user interface on the website which is incredibly fast. So sometimes these websites might not work in that particular way. So be more patient, try to find other places or sources जहाँ से आप उस information को corroborate कर सकें. A lot of those the websites which are run by the governments, those are pretty accurate. But if there is a website which is, let's say, volunteer run or run based upon non-governmental things, then do verify those things before you go forward. So these websites are excellent for finding master's programs, master's scholarships, but in PhD, typically either the department funds or there is like the European Research Council, जो इनकी governmental research councils होती हैं, they are the ones which do the funding. And so every country has their own research council. So if you are in, for instance, STEM disciplines, it would be very helpful to sort of follow that particular thing. And again, you can sort of figure out what is the country that you want to go to, and then maybe focus on that particular country instead of focusing on like 27 countries in Europe, which is a lot, right? And you will not have the time and energy to be able to do all of that. So this is where you can think about your personal preferences as well, कि अगर आप यूरोप के अंदर रहना चाहते हैं या यूरोप के अंदर किसी specific duration के अंदर किसी एक जगह पे रहना चाहते हैं, so maybe just focus on those particular countries as compared to the other countries. And again, there are a lot of considerations. You know, you might not want very cold weather, जैसे कि Nordics में होता है. So you might want something which is more sunny, which is more, warm. So all of those things you can think about. And then when you have finalized the countries and then explore all of those sort of opportunities. And so, yeah, next slide. Yeah. So I think these are the general tips जो हमने अभी तक की जो हमने गुफ्तगू की थी उसके अंदर हमने बात की है. But very important to search the department website, very important to search the council's website in order to sort of do those particular things. Again, आप Google के ऊपर भी randomly search कर सकते हैं. But very important to keep on checking every day, I would say, multiple times a day even, the websites which we have listed, कि वहाँ पर कौन सी opportunities आ रही हैं, कौन सी funding आ रही है. Once you know the availability of funding through these websites, find out what is the criteria, find out if you fulfill the criteria. क्या आपको documentation चाहिए, क्या आपको English proficiency test चाहिए, क्या आपको recommendation letter चाहिए, या आपने do you need to verify your degrees or whatever. So if you're just starting out at the process, there is a possibility कि आपके पास पूरी documentation नहीं है. So again, figure out the documentation that is needed, the documentation that is required. And again, I think this is the model in European PhD. कि first you get the admission to a PhD program, especially in humanities, और उसके बाद funding के लिए आप बाद में apply करते हो. And so if that is the case, again, be prepared to sort of maybe develop your application material more based upon the requirement of your funding. Sometimes you have to follow a certain format. You can also highlight your leadership experiences. For instance, if you were a team lead, even in volunteer capacity, if you have done something for the community, you can highlight that as well. Internships are very important, I think, because not only do you get work experience, but you also get to meet more people, connect with more people. And again, those are the people who can then write your प्रोफेशनल रिकमेंडेशन लेटर, जैसे जापान वर्ल्ड बैंक वाली स्कॉलरशिप के अंदर था. एंड सो अगेन हैव अ वेरी गुड लिंक्डइन प्रोफाइल, आई वुड से, लाइक दैट हेल्प्स a lot. So you can maybe upload those things or talk about those things, or maybe make small posts on your LinkedIn profile about the things that you have done. Finally, in many cases, you will be asked for an interview. Again, if the supervisor is interviewing you, read up on the latest work of the supervisor and also know generally what the supervisor is interested in. क्योंकि आमतौर पे गुफ्तगू उसके बारे में होगी कि आप उन प्रोजेक्ट्स में या उस लैब के अंदर या उस ग्रांट जो से मिली हुई है उसके अंदर आप कैसे काम कर सकते हैं. So that is the best way to prepare for an interview, by reading up, by making yourself familiar with the work of the person who is going to be your supervisor for the next 4 years, or the lab which is going to host you for the next 3 or 4 years in that particular case. So yeah, next slide. Okay, questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both of you, for going through all of that so comprehensively. I think we can kick off by taking the questions related to Oxford from Meher. I'm just going to read them out for the recording, just in case somebody chooses to watch it later. So Talha, do scholarships at Oxford come with college offers, and how competitive is the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies scholarship? The decision for it comes sometime in June, so is it worth waiting for it?
So do scholarships at Oxford come with college offers? Most probably, you would either be given a college offer and then you'll hear about the scholarship, and that might be agnostic to a college. There's some scholarships that are linked to colleges, so even if you have gotten admission in a particular college, you can very easily be transferred. It's not like your fate is sealed if you have that. The second thing is the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies scholarship. It is highly competitive because there's only one scholarship and it's for all Muslim countries. So it is competitive, but that doesn't mean that you should wait for it. You should wait for it, but keep on applying for keep on looking for other opportunities. That shouldn't be your only boat that you should wait for. But yeah, it is a highly competitive scholarship.
So the next question again about Oxford is what happens if we haven't specified a college preference for Oxford? Is it still possible to check out colleges and apply separately, or is it part of the general application? I already have an offer from Oxford for the MPhil in Islamic history and studies, just waiting for college and funding offers now.
So if you haven't specified a college, it's not an issue, to be honest. Keep looking for scholarships, and you can apply to them separately. And if you get a really good scholarship from a particular college, then you can obviously transfer to that college. So it's not and congratulations on getting your MPhil in Islamic history and studies. So that's amazing. Fingers crossed, hopefully you can secure a scholarship, but yeah, keep looking at everything that you can find and keep applying.
Perfect. Thank you, Talha. Anybody else with questions, you can pop them in the chat or you can also raise your hand. So there's one question on, I think, the Erasmus. My question is related to living in consortium scholarship from Erasmus. Is a 500 euro stipend per month enough to live in a country like France or Spain?
I would say barely, but it is possible. Yeah, it is possible to do that.
Perfect. And once again, an Oxford related question. How do I keep looking for scholarships? Where do I find them?
Mayor, thank you so much for the question. So in terms of the scholarships, all the scholarships that are at Oxford have been discussed in this presentation. So Wikinoon, Best Way, the Sun and Medway Scholarship. Then there is the Oxford Scholars Program, Oxford Pakistan Program Scholarship. Then there's fees and funding scholarship page that you can look at. See what fundings are available, and apply. And then there's the Oxford Center for Islamic Studies scholarship. So these are the main. There's Hoffman scholarship as well, but I don't know if no, it's not a problem. You can keep asking questions, but in terms of this is a scholarship page in front of you, and you can look at this page and you can look at fees and funding and try to find out, specify Pakistan and see what scholarships are available for you and apply, and hopefully things work out and we will see you in Oxford in October.
Perfect. Any other questions? You're also welcome to simply raise your hand and ask your question. You don't have to necessarily put them in the chat. And as we wait for people to make up their minds, I do also want to mention that the recording of this workshop, as well as the PPT, will be sent your way in a couple of days. So you will have access to all those links that were mentioned in the PPT. So you're always welcome to click on those links and navigate to the websites and see for yourself exactly what the requirements for all of those scholarships are. Great. It looks like there are no further questions. But of course, if you think of something else in due course, you're always welcome to email your questions to us, either directly to OPP or to Project EduAccess, and we will aim to get back to you as soon as possible. Well, once again, Talha and Hassan, thank you so much for making time for this and for patiently going through all of that in the PPT.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, and it was lovely to meet you, Hassan, as well. I think we might have bumped into each other in one of these sessions before, but it was a pleasure to host it, to co-host it with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise, Talha. Thank you.
Thanks, Gayatri. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.